powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, this is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. This hour of the Sports Bash, it is brought to you by Taco Cat. If you got a craving for tacos, then check out the Taco Cat, located at 8 South Essex Avenue in Margate. Visit them at TacoCatSouthJersey.com for more info and give them a follow on Instagram at Taco Cat Margate. Geoff Mosher is here for today's edition of Football at 4. Nick Sirianni speaking a little while ago. We got a lot to dive into, but I want to start, Geoff, the Eagles win 38-31. Obviously, it's one of those games where you're scratching your head. You got to win, but how can you not blow out the Commanders? Why do they always give us problems? But at the end of the day, I think one question that comes from that game for me, and there's more, Ryan and I, I'm sure, will pick your brain on, but the Eagles need to evaluate the running back spot with Gainwell's role on this team. Is that something that you take from that game yesterday as something that you'll look at tomorrow and then at the deadline and then moving forward this year?
Well, if Kenneth Gainwell is going to continue to dig into his cell phone at halftime and respond to critics who are DMing him, then yes, I would say the Eagles need to find themselves somebody else at the running back position, because that's a recipe for disaster right there when you start letting the fans get to you and doing those kind of things during halftime. But let's just say he's probably not going to do that again and move on. I would still say the team could benefit from another running back, a bigger bruising the type that Rashad Penny would normally give you if you were actually able to get on the field or be active, but clearly this long game that they're playing with Rashad Penny doesn't seem to have any kind of different direction to it yet, unless something happens coming out of the bye week that we don't know about. So, yeah, it could benefit them to have that. Do I think that it will be an impediment to them getting to where they want to go and winning a Super Bowl? No, I don't think so. Not compared to maybe some other areas of help that they might need. But I think it's a fair point that if DeAndre Swift were to get hurt, right, or have to miss a game or two or whatever, and now Kenneth Gainwell's your number one and Boston Scott's your two, and that's really different than what they've had so far, especially without Jaylen Herz running as much.
Yeah, and listen, there's a lot of things in that game yesterday we talked about in the first hour I want to get your take on. We talked about Hurts not running as much, becoming more of a quote-unquote pocket passer, and we kind of went back and forth. Can this Eagles offense, can this Eagles team win a Super Bowl with this version of Jaylen Herz?
It's a great question. I don't see why not. I mean, I think there are a couple of other issues with the offense, starting with the turnovers, that I think are more problematic to them winning a Super Bowl than whether or not Jaylen Herz is running. I mean, Jaylen Herz did not run a whole lot, and people have always wondered, well, what kind of impact will that have on the run game and the overall offense? Well, they didn't run the ball very well. And if you want to draw a correlation to that, I think it's fair. I think if linebackers who don't have to sort of try to play that man-and-a-half type defense where you're looking to the edges, but you're also looking inside, right, because you fear the threat of the quarterback run. If you don't have that fear and you can sort of shoot the gaps and get in there against the run, that's an advantage for the defense, and I think that's probably something that happened yesterday. But at the same time, look at the weapons the Eagles have, look at the offensive line, and look how much that Jaylen Herz has progressed as a passer. I don't think now we're at a point anymore where we say, if there's no quarterback run game, this Eagles offense isn't good. I think that they showed yesterday, quite to the contrary, that they can still move the ball even when he's not running. Same thing with Miami. He didn't really run against them, and they scored 1 points?
Mosh, what are you hearing about Hurts and the knee injury? Because it's just, not much being revealed, and good on them. I don't blame them, but just observation-wise, what have you noticed, if anything? Should fans be concerned or maybe not at all? I mean, how are you looking at this? What have you heard?
You know what, Ryan? I heard a couple things. Just it's tough to, if you can't confirm. I don't feel comfortable, going forward with it. But
sure.
To answer the second part of your question, I would say that whatever it is, we just watched him play a game and play pretty well. Completed 77% of his passes, threw for over 300 yards, made some really nice throws, some good reads. Obviously, no one's perfect, and there are some times that he didn't do some things great, but I don't think it had anything to do with the knee, right? You're just looking, can he plant, can he throw? And I thought he showed that he could do that. And so I wouldn't sit here to say I'm nervous. The only time I'd be nervous would be hurt it more, right? Because it clearly didn't impact negatively his ability to throw the ball yesterday.
Yeah, and you'd have to say, all right, the Eagles aren't, they handle things with care and very, logistically, just like with their approach, common sense, I should really say. So you trust them and you just sort of hope for the best and hope he doesn't get more hurt, as you mentioned. But this offense, right? Michael Irvin said, and take this with a grain of salt, but he was jokingly saying the Eagles have two plays, the tush push and throw it to A.J. Brown. What are your thoughts?
Sounds like something a Dallas Cowboy would say.
Right.
I'm shocked that Orlando Scandrick hasn't come out added to that. Where is he lately? Ever since he ripped the Eagles?
Remember that name? Yeah.
It's funny you say that. He was doing stuff for Believe. He was the Believe in Cowboys guy, and when I requested him to come on the show, he declined.
Oh, well, maybe he doesn't believe in his Cowboys.
Nice.
No, I mean that's clearly not true. I'm pretty sure Devontae Smith had a touchdown yesterday and some pretty decent catches. And I'm pretty sure Dallas Goedert has been, over the last 3 or 4 weeks, much more involved, especially on some third downs, than he was earlier in the year. Now, are they way more A.J. Brown-centric this year than they were last year? Sure. Guess what? The Minnesota Vikings were way more Justin Jefferson-centric last year and then even this year than his rookie year. Because guess what? They realized how good he was. So to me, it's not an issue until you become predictable and that you're only going to that guy, or if that guy that you're throwing to struggles in, double coverage or contested catch situations. And I think I saw a guy yesterday in A.J. Brown who beat both single and double coverage and made some amazing catches. And so when you have that, and he does that on a regular basis. So when you have a quarterback who trusts him, when you have a receiver who can make those type of plays, then you throw the ball to him. I mean, I don't see an issue with it. I do think that there have been teams in the past that weren't good because they were too reliant on one guy. But again, Devontae Smith had a touchdown. Deontay Swift had a touchdown. Julio Jones had a touchdown. So I don't think this offense is as one-dimensional as it might look if you were a Cowboy.
This is a gauntlet coming up here for the Birds.
Real quick.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Is anybody catching the ball for the Cowboys other than CeeDee Lamb? I haven't really watched a whole lot of their games this year, but every time I watch it, all they do is throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's fair. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Yeah, fair enough. Speaking of the boys, obviously it's Dallas week. But just talk about the importance of this game. Obviously, always important, division opponent against the Cowboys. It's just amped up even that much more. But not only this week, but how are we feeling about this team and how they're set up to handle the next 5-6 weeks? Because this is a challenge for anybody, regardless of how good you are.
By the way, Lamb, 46 catches, 633. The next highest guy is Ferguson with 25 receptions for 237 yards. Then Gallup with 20 catches for 224. Pollard is next. Then Brandon Cooks has 16 for 158. Yeah. 46
they don't even have a tush push. So they have less than the Eagles.
Yeah, they have one play. Throw it to CeeDee Lamb.
There you go.
So to answer your question, I definitely think the stretch of games coming up here is a litmus test for the Eagles. I mean, they've been able to overcome some defensive deficiencies and some personnel switches, including yesterday, for quite a while. Now you're going to face a stretch of teams that have really good quarterbacks, good offensive concepts, designs, playmakers. And, not that Washington doesn't, but, I mean, they've played a lot of teams so far that may have good wide receivers, but not a good quarterback. They have a good quarterback, not a great offensive line. They're going to face some more complete teams. But I will say this. I think that people are still waiting for, like, a template Eagles team to emerge, right? They're waiting for last year's Eagles team to emerge. And, not seeing the forest to the trees a little bit, like the 49ers are a team that came in with great expectations. They got 3 straight losses. Dallas Cowboys came in with great expectations. They lost to the 49ers and got their butts handed to them. Like the Detroit Lions came in with expectations, and they've been pretty good. But they had a terrible game against the Baltimore Ravens. The Eagles maybe are not, filling that template that people want for them, but they're 7-1. They're the only team in the NFC that's 7-1. They had a bad game against the Jets, not because the other team outplayed the crap out of them like the way Baltimore did to Detroit, but because they turned the ball over 4 times. And again, that's part of their offense that I feel that we have to watch going forward, because that is something that's got to be corrected and cleaned up. They've been doing it far too much, and that could be an impediment to winning a Super Bowl. But not every year is the same, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs are pretty illustrative of that. They won the Super Bowl last year, wasn't even their best team. They bring back a good team this year. They were 6-1 before losing yesterday, but even everybody's been saying, like, well, man, they really don't have a wide receiver that stepped up as their number one next to Kelsey. So even they're not the Chiefs of last year, but they're different, but they were still 6-1 going into this past weekend. So I think you have to give the Eagles credit for being 7-1, and if they go into this stretch that you're talking about and they lose like a game or two, it's not like, to me, it's not like, oh my God, the world is ending for the Eagles or not.
Right.
As they think they are. I mean, it's pretty good that they're 7-1 right now.
Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast. I want to get to the defensive side of the ball, but we have some text messages coming in. I want to try to do this more often, where we get messages from our listeners that we can ask guys like Jeff and Adam and Andrew. Guys, I understand Hertz is putting up yards as a pocket passer, but I wouldn't say he's being successful as a pocket passer. Every team has put up like 400 yards against the Commanders, and Hertz is leading the league in interceptions and probably turnovers because he's fumbled a bunch. It's almost like the year Winston had with the Bucs, 30 touchdowns and 30 turnovers, was that successful. Do you agree with that he's suggesting that Hertz hasn't been successful as a pocket passer?
Well, I mean, it goes back to, how do you define success? Do you look at 7-1 and think that the Eagles are 7-1 in spite of Jaylen Herz? I have a hard time making that argument. It's very, very true that he has not been as protective of the football this year as last year. To sort of put him in Jameis Winston terrain, to me, is a little bit irresponsible. With Hertz, I think he's fumbled the ball a little bit too much. Yes, he's thrown some bad interceptions too, but to me it's the fumbling that's really hurt them. I would say yesterday's fumble going in on the tush push was a little bit of an aberration, because that's the first time in that situation I've seen it. I think with him, you've seen him fumble climbing the pocket and somebody smacking the ball out of him while he's trying to buy some extra time because he's not getting rid of the ball quickly enough in certain situations. But, let's not make every quarterback who's turning the ball over a little bit, unconventionally into Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Like that, right? Like, I think Hertz deserves a little bit more benefit of the doubt, having gone to a Super Bowl, performed well. And I would say as a pocket passer, he is more than he's not. He is successful. He completed like 78% of his passes the last 2 games. He's thrown for over 300 yards. He's throwing touchdown passes to different guys. So, I mean, I just think that's being a little bit nitpicky. Yes, he's turning the ball over. No, that doesn't make him, Jameis Winston.
By the way, I like Matt and Kate May. Says, I disagree, guys. Dallas does have 2 plays. They throw to CeeDee Lamb, and then Dak throws it to the wrong team.
There you go.
Nice.
That's pretty funny. Let's get your thoughts on the defense. This is the mesmerizing part about the NFL, Jeff. Washington, the narrative all week, 80 sacks they're on pace to give up, and Howell gets sacked so much, and he sacked all week week against the Giants. You're playing against the Eagles, whose calling card is getting pressure, and you just feel like this offensive line is a terrible matchup against this Eagle defense. So do you look at that and scratch your head, or do you say, well, no, they might not have got sacks, but they were a big factor in the game?
I mean, the defensive line was more of a factor late in the game than early. Obviously, Washington agreed with everybody who said that their offensive line wouldn't hold up against the Eagles' defensive line, because their entire game plan was to try to three-step drop, screen, and quick game the ball out of Sam Howell's hands so that the defensive line could not suffocate the offensive line. But I will say, there were times where I thought the offensive line did do a good job. There were times that they kept some tight ends in or backs in to help chip and pass pro. I mean, the joke I always make about this game, and I did it twice this year, and it's held true to form, in our pregame show, I say, here we do 2 hours of analysis of Eagles Commanders and why the Eagles should dominate them every which way. But then when the ball gets kicked off, that 2 hours of analysis goes right out the window. And that's happened twice. So it happened last year, too, when Washington won. For whatever reason, when these two teams play, it just doesn't really follow the script like it should. And that's been the case 2 times now. And Sam Howell has looked really – Sam Howell, I joke, is becoming the new Jake Plummer, right? He's like the new thorn in the side of the Eagles, who shouldn't be. But he is. He's becoming that guy. And you give him credit. I think what we tend to forget is it's not like the Commanders and their coaches and players don't know their deficiencies, right? And it's not like they don't know what they're going up against. So last week against the Giants, they really struggled against, like, really simple stunts, like TT stunts, tackle stunts, TE stunts, end tackle stunts. For whatever reason, they acted like they had never seen them before. That's something that the Eagles do quite a bit of, too. So I guarantee you the coaching point and the teaching point all week long for Washington was, folks, we got to act like we know what we're doing here. Here's the tape. Here's the film. Here's how you defend it. You're all professionals. You may not be all pros, but you've got to be able to defend basic line games. And so I would think that Washington really keyed in on a lot of its areas of deficiencies this week leading up to this Eagles game, and then, again, designed an offense that they thought would be advantageous to them because it got the ball out of Sam Howell's hands really quickly against an Eagles defense that was rotating personnel all across the middle from linebacker to safety to slot corner. So it was a little bit of a perfect storm there.
Yeah, how do you assess Sean Desai and what he did yesterday with all that rotating and managing personnel and coming up with these game plans? And, you know, your thoughts on just how he's handling this new, obviously massive role here, and he's getting some heat today.
Yeah, I mean, I've been reluctant to give him heat until I see the all-22 and see what was going on. I mean, it did seem like with the addition of Byard, right, who he had to play the entire game, you might have had to keep it kind of simple because how much can you throw on the guy? You already asked him to play safety and slot in his first go-around in this defense. So you probably have to keep things simpler than you normally would. Plus, now you're asking Sidney Brown to play some slot reps because you still don't have Bradley Roby, you still don't have a slot corner, and Sidney Brown's not a slot nickelback type of player. So when you do that, you got to be a little bit more simpler in your scheme. And I think that's part of the perfect storm. You heard Nick Sirianni today, well, we were a little bit in the middle of the field. We gave middle of the field looks. Like he basically was saying, you know, we didn't do a whole lot of confusing the quarterback. And I'm not sure how much Sean could have done because of the players he was playing at those positions as far as, you know, spinning safeties and zone pressures and guys dropping and other guys coming. Like that's stuff you do when your guys are very comfortable in their roles. And I don't know that he had that opportunity with all the newness going on in the back end.
Geoff, obviously they got Dallas coming up as we kind of hit on earlier, and the Eagles are a game up. Dallas is 5-2. Dallas is coming off that big win. Do you look at this game as, well, if Philadelphia loses this game, this will prove to a lot of people, or is this just an early season matchup that we don't take a lot from?
You're asking if this game is in itself a litmus test for the Eagles, or
yeah, like, you know, they played. Like we talked earlier, like the Eagles have not played a daunting schedule. Their schedule is starting to get tough right now. They beat Miami, and I don't know what people take from that. I mean, I think people look at Philly as pretty good, but last year the narrative all season long was, well, they never played anybody. Well, they really haven't played anybody yet. They played Miami and beat them pretty handily. So. Yeah. If they were to lose this game, would we be like, oh, this Eagles team is showing people's fears are accurate? Or do you look at it like, not really. I mean, this team is good no matter whether they win or beat Dallas on Sunday.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mike. I mean, I think it would be if they lose, like how they lose the game, right? Like if they give up 35 points because they get carved across the middle the same way Washington did, except even worse because Washington can actually protect Dak Prescott. You know, if they really expose James Bradbury, who I don't think is playing great, and, you know, strike down, then I think you say, yeah, now I'm a little worried when it turns to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy and that San Francisco offense. Like, we're really struggling here to defend the middle of the field. If that would be the case, then I think that, yeah, you would probably feel some concern about it. But it's still, at the end of the day, to me, it would be, all right, you're 7-2, you lost the game. How do you respond? What is your response to adversity? We saw that their response to losing a game against the Jets was to go out and beat a Miami team that was is having a prolific season offensively, historic season, and beat them pretty convincingly. So I wouldn't put too much into one loss, but I certainly think if they get loose in the secondary, that would be a longer-term concern for this team.
All right, Geoff Mosher. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast on all podcasting platforms, and, of course, the Inside the Birds pregame show, which you can check out on their YouTube channel. They're going to get you ready for the Eagles in Dallas, and, of course, you can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Geoff Mosher is back on Wednesday. Thank you, buddy.
All right, guys. Have a good one.